So now let's like kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about some of those questions that you can ask the group leaders to about their specific programs to see if it's going to be a good fit for your child. So here are some questions that I think are useful to ask, and then at the end I'm going to ask you for your questions as well, additional questions you might have. So asking about support I think is really, really important. Some children will be able to come in and participate in an activity with little or no support. And if that's the case, that's wonderful. Like if your child is able to go, be independent, doesn't require an additional level of support for whatever reason, great. But we certainly know that lots of children do. They will require some level of additional support in order to be successful in the program. So there's a couple of angles you can take with support, right? You can either ask the organization, like, what's the ratio of children in this program? Because it's not always about having a designated support person, like kind of like in the schools, right? It's not like having an SEA that's sort of like attached to your child and maybe another child and that's their role. It could just simply be that what's your group size and what's the ratio of adults to children? Because again, your child might be, you might know that they might be successful as long as there's not like 20 children and one adult, right? If it's for example, like a Scouts organization or an art class that's really small, maybe that's going to be sufficient for your child. Like maybe that's going to get them enough support. But some programs do offer specific support, right? So if that's the case, certainly ask about that. And of course, the other avenue you can go is you can offer to bring someone with your child. So is it possible to have a support person attend with my child? And that support person can be anyone who you think will be helpful. So it certainly could be someone like a BI or a respite worker or anyone else like that. But it could just be like the cousin or grandma or yourself. Like the support person can be whoever makes sense for your family and your situation. Some programs are completely open to having a support person attend and others are not. And there are lots of reasons for both ways. But it's definitely a great question to ask. If support people are provided, it's usually helpful to ask, both about the ratio and about their training. So for example, I'm not going to name names, but there are organizations out there that run these sort of specialized programs, and they'll have like one leader and one additional person. And then you'll start to ask questions about what's the experience of the leader with regard to supporting children like my child? Like, do they have previous background supporting children with autism, for example, or who may just require additional types of support? And you realize that they actually don't, right? Like, even though it's sort of marketed in that way, that these are people who are hired into this role because of their experience and background with the activity, whether that's the sport or whatever, as opposed to having that background working with children. So it's good to ask that question, and really always remember, sometimes the best trained people are not the right fit for your child, and sometimes the people with the least training are amazing with your child. So it does always come down to that goodness of fit, right? However, as Deborah said, in terms of advocacy, some of these organizations may not even realize that there's training available that can support them to be more inclusive. So, you can definitely let them know that there is. Okay, so this is kind of what I just said. So when I travel around British Columbia, and I have the great privilege to speak to lots of different people who are interested in inclusive recreation, and they really want this knowledge, they want to know how to include children with autism in their programs, you start to realize that, wow, there's like so many ways kids can be successful, right? You can have these programs that are just like super layer upon layer upon layer that makes it like almost impossible for your child to fail in terms of they've got tons of staff, they're really well trained, they're well supervised, it's like good to go. Sometimes you find a community organization, and again, this could be whether it's a sport, you see a sport like hockey where sometimes they get parent volunteers that come out or other volunteers, student volunteers can be amazing. And, they've set up nothing. Like they don't have any special training. They haven't really, they're not thinking of it in terms of like, oh, what's the support ratio in your program? It just so happens that on the hockey team your kid signs up for, there's this amazing student volunteer that's there because she's collecting hours for her teacher experience. and she's so good with your kid, right? So that in and of itself can be the clincher to success. So you can find that sometimes as well. Sometimes you just find coaches or leaders who are outstanding. So they are absolutely 100% committed to making sure that every child is successful. They may or may not have any background at all in supporting additional needs, and yet they've got that it factor Deborah described. Those people, it's still worth talking to those types of folks about training experiences that are available. And I'm going to show you a case study in a minute that really illustrates why that can be good, because you can help that person who's already an embedded champion for inclusion to help more people in their organization become champions for inclusion as well. Sometimes programs work for kids just because the groups are small. So I've certainly seen that a lot with things like art classes or other types of community experiences that are just smaller. And because there's only 4 kids in the group, the child really does very well. And then sometimes there are not really any additional supports available. And that's where, things can sometimes get challenging, especially if your child is not yet ultra passionate about the activity. So we have talked about this already, but again, we're talking right now about questions to ask before you register, right? So I have on your handout on the next page now, you've got some fill in the blanks here. So remember, who can you speak to about the program before you register? Whether that's that program recreation coordinator, whether it's the coach, or sometimes in sport, there's like a league organizer that's sort of within your region. If you can talk to that person, that's great. If it's, scouts or guides or an arts program or something else, who is it that coordinates or oversees the programming for your region? Can you give them a call? Usually really quickly, you get a good gut feeling of what that organization's commitment is in this area. So sometimes you immediately will hear stories like, oh yeah, we've included this child and this child and this child and da-da-da-da-da. And of course you want to keep asking the questions because every child's unique and you want to tell them about your child, but it's definitely good to speak to someone if you can. We talked earlier about, is it possible to observe a session? A great way for you as the parent, who is the expert in your own child, to see what kind of supports your child might need. Is this a program that they're kind of pretty much ready to step into? Or is there something else that maybe you want to try first? Okay. Now, another question we haven't talked about yet is, so we've talked about getting on the phone and giving a call to the person who coordinates the whole thing, right? Another question to ask is how much opportunity will you have to communicate sort of on like a session by session basis with the person who's actually directly interacting with your child, right? So again, COVID, right? It's tough to have these long conversations with people these days, and they don't need to be long conversations, but still, it's definitely a bit of a tricky layer right now. But for programs that are running, how much opportunity would you have to, maybe you're observing on the sidelines, safe distance apart and everything. You're watching your child in the program, you notice something and you think, gosh, I'd just love to be able to communicate to the coach if they took this approach, it could probably be successful. Or, just ask them a question. Things tend to work out better if you can have communication throughout the program about how it's going. And I would really say too that if you encourage that leader to ask you questions, right? Please, please don't feel scared to ask me questions. I know there could be hiccups that happen here. I'm expecting there to be things that don't go well. Really, it's all okay. I just want us to keep working together, basically. Okay. Another great source of information is if you happen to know a parent who has tried the program. So certainly through your own, communities, do you know another parent who's, had their child with autism, or another child who just might need extra support, or even not, even just any other child who's participated in that program? Can you talk to that parent about what their experience was, right? What did they find useful? What did they find challenging? Parent to parent references, if you will, are definitely super, super useful. Have you had kids like mine before? Good question. Can I get a refund if it doesn't work out? That's a good question. So if you try the first day or the first session and it becomes pretty immediately apparent that either your child just isn't into it or the support isn't a good match or whatever, it's nice to be able to get some money back, of course. Okay. Oh, that's a nice one. Is there availability to come early to the program so the child has time to adapt to the environment? Very nice, right? I could see that being especially helpful in environments like skating rinks, swimming pools, gymnastics facilities. I haven't mentioned gymnastics much yet, but they are one of the groups that tends to have a lot of those adapted programs set up. Certainly around the Lower Mainland, there's quite a number of adapted gymnastics programs happening. What qualifications or experience do the people leading the program have? Great. Oh, I love this question. Do you have spaces for my child to take a break if they require one, with possible supervision? What a great question that is. We'll talk about breaks on November 5th in our kind of strategies and toolbox workshop. But yeah, that is so legit because I always say to parents and teachers to think about what kids typically do when they need a break, right? And what a lot of kids will do is they'll just ask to go to the washroom or they'll ask to go get a drink of water, right? And that's just their way as children of taking breaks. Sometimes we need to sort of support kids that we're supporting to recognize that they need that break and then provide a little bit more guidance to support them to taking that break. And your question about a space is a really important one. So if it's an ice skating lesson or if they're in a swimming lesson and they need a break, how would you handle that, right? Where could the child go? Even if it's as simple as just kind of being in this one area where, yep, leader's still got an eye on them and they're fine and I can check in with them and see when they're ready to join again. Have you had other kids with autism in the class? Perfect. Great. Okay, great questions. Thank you for submitting those.